Johnson gets a block. Are you kidding?
And a steal. Miller retreats to the three-point line and hits again.
But Gerrard! Oh, you beauty! What a head, son! What a head!
Welcome to the No Regard podcast. My name's Nathan Blakely.
I'm Marcelo Lucha.
Wow, episode 7, Marcelo.
I can't
Lucky
believe we
number.
made it this far, to be honest.
Speaking of making it this far, do you want to enlighten the people on a sneaky fact?
Hey man, I gotta say so. Happy birthday to you, man.
Thank you, man.
Alright, we went out last night. How'd it go, Nathan? Tell the people how it went.
I felt better on Sunday mornings, to be honest. I felt better. It was quite a night that I'll struggle to remember, that I am struggling to remember, but you know, everyone had a good time. A little bit at my expense, but I had a great night.
Hey, that's what it's all about. As long as everyone had a good time, right, Nathan?
Exactly.
So we're recording this at 3 p.m. on a Sunday.
Yeah, exactly.
Feeling a bit better, right?
Yeah, feeling a bit better.
Morning was a bit shaky, but hey.
Yeah, exactly. Quote from Marcelo when he got here. Nathan, you look terrible.
You look absolutely terrible. Well, you guys should be glad we're not doing video.
Yeah, we aren't doing video. I've always been told I have a strong face for radio, and today it's quite apparent that this is probably the best form of giving it to the people today.
Hell yeah, well let's get right into it, Nathan.
Alright, so NBA playoffs. We're almost at the conference finals now. Like, it's really getting to the pointy end. Some surprising developments from last week, like some of the picks we made last week, we were doing it when Memphis was up 2-1, Bulls were up for 2-1, Washington were up 2-1 at the time too. So were LAC as well. So there's been some big developments in every single series this week. So plenty of drama. And plenty of buzzer beaters as well.
Okay, well, do you want to talk about the series that's still left to play?
Yeah, of course. So as Marcelo said, we are recording this on a Sunday, and tomorrow is when the Game 7 of LAC and Houston is getting played. Over
Around 15 hours that's going to be played.
Yep, and so that's in Houston.
So by the time you guys are watching this, that game will be over. But I wanted to ask you, who do you think wins? Clippers or the Rockets?
Look, I honestly thought LAC had this wrapped up. They went up 3-1. Now, historically, teams that go up 3-1, only 8 teams have ever lost a series from that point. It's been like it's been a meltdown. It's been hard to watch them go from so close, and it will really hurt them a lot, I feel, if they end up losing at this point when they were so close. Blake Griffin, you can't really fault his play. He's played incredibly well the entire series. But look, it's just Hacker Jordan. Like, I struggle to watch games in this series because they aren't fun to watch, because it is a lot of Hacker Jordan. Like, the amount of times he's going to the free throw line, 34 times in one of the games, it's mental. And it will promote a rule change, in my opinion. You think it'll happen? I reckon that there has to be some sort of rule change. I liked the suggestion from Mikhail himself, the hacker master. Like, they shouldn't be allowed to intentionally foul in the first 14 seconds of the shot clock unless it's in a clutch game situation. So, like, obviously, if you're sending guys to the line when there's hardly any time left to give yourself another possession, like, that's something that's historic in the game, and that's something that needs to still be there. But I think that's a good idea, like, not fouling at the start of the shot clock either.
Okay.
So it's a very complex sort of issue. Like, guys have to make their free throws, but at the same time, it's very hard to watch. But I think the league will get together with the owners and as well as some players and try and figure out what would be the best situation to make sure this doesn't become a regular occurrence with bad free throw shooters.
Well, I mean, instead of getting together with the owners, they should just get together with DeAndre Jordan and whoever taught him to shoot free throws. Okay, because we're talking about a professional basketball player, right?
That gets paid a lot of money to do what he does.
A hell of a lot of money, okay?
Yeah.
You think about it, when you're in AAU and you're playing in high school or in college, you'd think the fundamentals would be what coaches are focusing on.
Yeah.
And honestly, that's not the case.
You honestly feel like he might have gotten by, and like, he's not a player that can shoot outside of the paint, to be honest. This is a player that's probably gotten by on his height. That's his main skill, being a tenacious rebounder, being an absolutely incredible dunker, by the way. But his shooting touch just isn't there, and it doesn't need to be an open play, because that's not what his talents are. He's not the second coming of Mark Price or Steve Kerr or anything like that. But yeah, like, when he goes to the line so many times, he needs to start hitting them. And same goes for Dwight Howard as well.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a bunch of guys in the league, right? Yeah. But to me, it's the classic, what you said is you're relying too much on your athleticism, right?
Exactly.
So it's easy when you're in high school and college and you're taller than everyone. You're bigger than everyone. I mean, we've both played team sports where there's someone that's just athletic as all hell, right?
Exactly.
And just speaking from experience, reaching, I wouldn't say high levels in football, but competitive levels, you had athletic players that would jump divisions and their quality would regress so much because technically they just didn't focus on their skills, right? Yeah. And so you think about that with DeAndre Jordan, Dwight Howard, like you said. These are really, really good players at what they do. Athletically, they can do everything, right? Rebound, dunk, around the rim, they're incredible. They can block shots from anywhere. But a free throw, it's so simple, right? It's something that you'd think he'd still be practicing right now as we speak.
He should be practicing this at every literal moment.
Honestly, if I'm Doc Rivers, I don't even run practice for DeAndre Jordan.
He's having go stand in the corner and shoot free throws.
Right, with an assistant coach.
Exactly.
Right, and I might have Austin Rivers there helping him, or Chris Paul, whoever. Right, I might call up Ray Allen and see what's going on with him. Yeah. Maybe you can come help me out a bit. So
pretty famously though, Dwight Howard refused help from Steve Nash, one of the greatest free throw shooters of all time.
Then again, he's refused help from a lot of players, like Hakeem Olajuwon. That's another issue altogether, though, with Dwight Howard.
But yeah, the free throw issue is something that'll come out a lot in this off-season. It'll be very interesting to see how it develops. But who's your pick for Game 7? I think LAC will still find a way to get it out. I think we saw in the last Game 7 too. Guys like Blake Griffin and especially Chris Paul are very good in these situations. But you look back to last year as well when LAC were put down by the Thunder in Game 7 of that. They have, and we've seen it this year as well against the Spurs, they have some tendencies for late game sort of brain fades, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like obviously the offensive interference with DeAndre Jordan, Blake Griffin's turnover. Some of the other players besides Chris Paul have brain fades in the clutch. And look, Houston's got all the momentum, all of it. Coming back from 3-1 down, they've won 2 games. They're going to their own building for Game 7. All their role players are playing well. I mean, Harden hasn't contributed to this run that much. He's their best player, but he didn't contribute in Game 6. It was more Josh Smith and Dwight Howard and Corey Brewer. It was all these role players that were stepping up a lot. And I think Josh Smith, after this postseason, he's earned himself a lot more money than he would have been getting.
Yeah, I think the Detroit scenario there, it was bad for him. Because you think about it, Drummond, Monroe, there's too many big players on that team.
To be honest, he's big enough and should be paying power. He's basically a power forward.
Yeah, he is.
He's the same sort of physicality as LeBron. Obviously not as athletic. But he's close.
No, but he's pretty close athletically.
Exactly.
You compare those two bodies. You take the head off those two bodies. They're pretty much the same.
Exactly. And we've seen in these series, he's a great passer.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it'll be very interesting to see where he goes this offseason. If I was going to say, I think Josh Smith's earned himself a lot more money from this postseason. I think DeAndre might have lost a bit of money because his main weakness has been on display.
I mean, so you're picking the Clippers?
I'm picking the Clippers.
My original pick was the Clippers, but I'm changing it. I'm changing out my pick, man.
I actually did pick Houston in 7, actually.
Right, so we're both changing our picks.
Yeah, exactly.
I've got Houston.
Okay.
And I hope the Clippers win. Because you know what? If the Clippers don't win, this is a huge hit, a huge knock on Chris Paul and DeAndre Jordan. I don't put Griffin in that conversation because, like you said, he's been playing so well, right? And I did criticize him a few weeks ago about a few turnovers, like you said, like you were talking about before. But at the end of the day, when the game comes down to the line, the ball is in Chris Paul's hands. And whether he decides to shoot or pass the ball to someone else, it's in his hands, and it's going to come down to whether he can execute, right? Because we know James Harden in the clutch is killer. He's one of those cold-blooded players in the league that he'll play well in those situations. You talked about the momentum. It's all in Houston's favor. I think Dwight Howard comes up big. Josh Smith will play well. I think Houston can take this.
Definitely.
Which is a disappointment because the Clippers are the better team. they are the better team, right?
Yeah, of course.
So it's momentum, and it's huge because this has been a regular occurrence in the other series as well, which we're about to get to, is the huge collapse
by teams in a lead.
Exactly.
Like, the amazing stat I want to put out there is that all the lower seed teams had a 2-1 advantage in this series. And if LAC lose, then every single one of them would have blown that lead.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is with LAC, it will be leaning on, as they have these entire postseason, it'll be leaning on Blake Griffin and CP3 massively. Like, I don't think you can win a title like that. I think, to me, you have to have excellent role players.
Right, and Austin Rivers came up big, but it was just one game.
Exactly, and he hasn't got the runs on the board for me to compare him to, like, a Paddy Mills or something like that, a strong backup point guard for these title teams. I think Houston is pretty hungry for this chance at a championship. It'll be very interesting to see, because I think definitely Dwight Howard is very hungry for his ring.
Yeah,
like he wants a championship really badly. People have criticised him in the past for being soft and all, but you can see it now. This postseason, he's been really driven, and like when he plays up to his absolute pinnacle, he's probably the best center in the league.
Right, and it's easy to call someone soft behind a mic.
Exactly.
Especially when you're not in the game playing.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Dwight Howard's one of the biggest guys in the league. I wouldn't be talking trash to Dwight Howard.
No way. All right, we might move on to one of the other series. 3 series have already been completed, so we'll maybe stay in the West and we'll talk about Golden State and Memphis. With the Memphis we saw in Game 2 and Game 3 just went missing in action for the last 3 games.
And this is the story of their lives, right?
Exactly.
The last few playoffs, they've always scared the better team,
exactly.
Right? I mean, Memphis has always been that grinder. They've played well, and they've scared you. Like, it's incredible what they do, but then they collapse. And it's like, what? You got to rest on your fundamentals, you know? I'm just not sure that they're giving the ball enough to Zach Randolph and Marc Gasol. Maybe they should have played better, you know? Maybe it shouldn't have all been on Mike Conley and Tony Allen with the guards that Golden State has. I mean, we talked about the collapses, and it's incrediable. I was honestly so surprised by the outcome of the series, because I thought Memphis had them.
Because like last week we were talking, like we all thought the Bulls, Wizards, and Memphis had a huge advantage with that 2-1 lead, because they did it quite convincingly.
And it is a huge advantage.
It is very it's a huge advantage, but like it's about putting your foot down and killing teams when you're in that position, not just we have this amount of game leeway. Look, Tony Allen was slightly hurt throughout the last part of the playoff series, which was a big factor. It was huge. But it shows Golden State are more than a jump shooting team, because those shots weren't falling early in the series.
Right.
Obviously, they picked it up in the last few games, but they were able to push through that slump with great defense. Like, neither of the games were a huge blowout against them. But like those last 3 games were it was a wash. Like
it was
all Golden State. To me, Curry, there was a lot of criticism for him after the first 3 games.
Yep.
Some called him out, which was ridiculous, that he didn't deserve the MVP just because he didn't come up in 2 games. He's really shown up the last 3 games. Like, he closed out the series with 8 3-pointers and 32 points, 10 assists, like an absolute MVP worthy performance.
Mm-hmm.
Klay Thompson was guarded very well the entire series, but he ended up coming up like when he needed to.
Yeah.
And Draymond Green, like, look, Zach Randolph was just too big for him. Like, it was, but he's not going to face anyone like that again. No one that big, that bruising on him.
Okay.
But I'm not saying he doesn't have tougher defensive assignments ahead, especially if we're talking about the King getting to the finals again.
Mm-hmm. Or even just Blake Griffin.
Even just Blake Griffin, if that's that series too. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes ahead.
Yep.
So we have Golden State already out, and they'll be playing either the Los Angeles Clippers or the Houston Rockets in the conference finals.
Okay, so the scenario: if the Clippers go through, do they beat Golden State?
No. If the Clippers go through, I think it really started to show in this series. They're leaning on their starting guys very hard, and it's gonna be very apparent if they try and go up a team with the depth that Golden State has. In my opinion, top 3 bench in this league, if not the best.
Okay. Well, what about Houston, if they go through?
If Houston go through, I think because Harden, it's going to be very interesting to see how Harden kind of gets through the defense of Klay Thompson, because in my opinion, Klay Thompson is a very underrated defensive player.
Incredibly underrated shooting guard.
He's probably one of the best he's probably the best two-way shooting guard right now in the league. Obviously, Harden is obviously the best offensive player, so it'll be very interesting to see how they operate, how they defend Houston, because now obviously with the emergence of Josh Smith as well, he's starting now actually.
Yeah.
So it'll be very interesting.
Hey, he deserves to start in this league.
Of course, he deserves to start in this league. He's a great player. I can't see any of these teams getting past Golden State.
Thank you.
Golden State have got their rhythm back. Steve Kerr was obviously we're all kind of confused when Mark Jackson got fired last year, but now we are kind of seeing Steve Kerr was the right move in retrospect. He's taken this team to another level to be the defensive juggernaut that they are. I mean, I don't see any situation where we don't see the Warriors in the championship series this year.
And I mean, even if you did disagree with the Mark Jackson firing, I disagreed with it personally, because I thought he'd done so much. But if looking at it from an organizational point of view, if there's someone better, why not? And this is a cutthroat industry. Loyalty doesn't go too far a ways in professional leagues.
It doesn't go 2 ways at all. Players will get called out for not being loyal when they exercise their rights in free agency. But if if a player's not playing up to that scratch, teams will cut them, they'll trade them, they'll do everything to get rid of them as well.
And we saw the Warriors players react poorly to the Mark Jackson firing at the start of the season and in the off-season. So now you see them with Steve Kerr, and it's a completely different team. I agree with you. They're playing really well.
I'm a big fan of Steve Kerr as a coach as well. Let's move over to the Eastern Conference. This is going to be painful for me. Just got to give me a bit of consideration. It's going to be a painful topic.
Look, I can empathize, because we both picked Chicago.
We did both pick Chicago from the outset, and to be honest, I'm going to go in a little bit here.
Okay. Fire away.
Chicago didn't take advantage of a very fortunate situation. They had LeBron playing with an injured back. Obviously, LeBron wasn't playing by any means he was hurt. He showed up in this series, was by far the best player in this series. It was ridiculous. At times inefficient, but still getting the job done most games, especially that absolutely crazy 38% performance. I think it was in Game 5.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, Game 5, he scored 38 points, 11 rebounds, I think. The Bulls had Kyrie playing hurt, Kevin Love out, J.R. Smith out for the first 2 games with suspension, Shumpert's playing with an injured hand. All these factors that are in their favour. David Blatt almost screwed it up, by the way.
With the timeout call. I mean, if you think about it on the video, they should have called the timeout. Right? So,
luckily
if you think about that, that could have been Chicago through on that one simple coaching error. Exactly. And this is why I don't think David Blatt will last in Cleveland, regardless of what happens with the championship.
Just for conversation's sake, what would have happened, in your opinion, if that timeout would have been called?
So I think Chicago wins, for one, okay? Secondly, I think LeBron rips into him in the postgame, okay?
LeBron's not afraid to call people out on his own
and
team.
I love it. I love it, right? So, and I think Chicago would have gone through. Kevin Love wouldn't have re-signed. It would have been disaster in Cleveland, but...
David Blatt would not have a job.
No, he wouldn't have a job.
No chance.
No way. No. But now he's got a chance. He's got a chance to redeem himself now.
Exactly. And not many rookie head coaches. We might be seeing 2 rookie head coaches in the finals. That'll be very interesting. I think Chicago had a huge chance to win this series. Obviously, Pau Gasol being hurt, but that's not really an excuse. You have Derrick Rose. Derrick Rose was the one shining light for me. He played very well in the series.
And that's a huge positive for the city of Chicago.
Exactly. It's been hard to watch us go through what we have with Derrick Rose recently, but it's very good to see now he's playing. Now he's playing at a very good level. I mean, this is all-star basketball he's playing. Yeah. But yeah, they should have killed him in game 4. they should have killed them off and shouldn't have given them a chance to get back in it. I mean, they had a chance to win Game 5, but LeBron just came down the lane with that insane block on Derrick Rose.
Look, when LeBron hit that buzzer beater, I knew this was over.
Yeah, all that would have just taken the life.
It just took the life out of it, and I couldn't see the balls coming back, especially with Powell
out.
Especially
because the reason they dominated some of the early games is because that Derrick Rose Pau Gasol pick and roll.
Right.
Without Pau Gasol, it's been amazing this year.
And Noah's been so disappointing.
Noah, look, he is injured a lot, but he's not the same player he was a year ago. I mean, 1 year ago he was
literally
we were talking about him as a dark horse MVP.
Yeah.
And now he's just a complete shadow of himself.
But that's the league. That's the NBA for you.
Yeah, that's the league. Things can change quickly, and I'd be very interested to see what the Bulls do going forward, like the Thibodeau coaching situation, whether he'll come back. I think
he gets fired.
Yeah, it just seems like that front office relationship is just broken. It's just completely broken.
Yep.
There's, from what I can tell, there are already rumors about his replacement, obviously, as well. And that's an old team too, man. Noah plays a lot older than he actually is because of the amount of surgeries he's gone through. I mean, Pau Gasol's 35 next season. You have Dunleavy, who's number one, a free agent now, and number 2 is 35. So we have two 35-year-olds in our starting lineup.
Butler's going to want a max.
Butler should get a max. If we don't pay Butler, this team's in the lottery.
Yeah. And you talk about Derrick Rose and how well he's played as well, but there's always that injury concern.
Yeah, I think any time he goes to ground in the game, you always just...
I couldn't imagine flinching so much watching a basketball game.
Every time, he even, when he bumped his shoulder in this series, I was having pretty bad flashbacks. It's... Yeah, so,
and it's a shame for the city of Chicago.
And they can always turn this around. They still have a strong team, the team that can probably still make a charge next season. But I feel like this was their best chance that they'll probably ever get. I mean, LeBron's going to be another year into the Kyrie partnership, everything else. John Wall and the Washington Wizards get another year of development. Next year's going to be tougher in the Eastern Conference for a team like the Bulls. So
yeah, I completely agree with you.
And then we'll just hop over to the other series in the East. So the Wizards and Atlanta, I picked Atlanta from the outset, so I'm just gonna sneaky brag.
No, all right, no, fair enough though, because I saw it.
Yeah, because I have faith that I had faith that they'd eventually get back to that regular season basketball they were playing, where it was that Spurs just team basketball sort of thing. I mean, Horford was huge in this series. So was Jeff Teague. I mean, Damari Carroll's just been a revelation in these playoffs. He's going to get a lot more money than people were predicting.
Maybe than he deserves, honestly.
Yeah, he's you come out with a postseason performance like this, it impresses.
You're making paper, man. He knows how to make money. Let's give him credit.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I got to apologize to the city of Atlanta, Georgia, because I completely underrated the Hawks.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I've said it since even before
you
the playoffs started. You
wouldn't be the first. You'd be nowhere near the first, near the only one.
No, but I was really critical because I didn't think this team had anything in it. I thought they'd be out in the first round, to be honest. And now we're talking about them in the conference finals. Yeah. Maybe even making it to the finals, and that's something we've got to talk about as well.
Oh, definitely.
But obviously, I didn't know that John Wall would get injured. All right.
Okay, yeah, that's
so
right.
Okay.
I mean, John Wall was huge for them in those early games. His hand getting injured just handicapped them massively, and we saw when he was back in Game 6 that he was still huge. He was still huge for them.
Yeah.
Paul Pierce, what can you say? It was the truth.
It was an amazing performance by Paul Pierce all series.
And what do you think about that game winner? That he could have got at the end of Game 6.
As with all Paul Pierce shots, they're not pretty, right? He just knows how to play.
He knows how to put it in.
And he knows how to put it in the basket. You look at him play, and it's not pretty at all. But he gets around players and he does well. I think he was so unlucky not to hit that. It was just on the fingertips. It was a good call by the refs.
Yeah, it was very good officiating. But if they get that, they would have a chance to win it. But I'm glad Atlanta went through. I mean, they played very well in the regular season. I mean, Budenholzer did get Coach of the Year. I think Al Horford is their Tim Duncan in the way that he can get a lot of rebounds and he can also block shots. And
He played well against two bigs in Nene and Gortat. And, I just wanted to touch on this, though. We talk about the greatness of Paul Pierce in this series, right?
Yeah.
Now, Kevin Garnett going to Minnesota. Okay, let me just put this out there. What if he had gone to Washington with Paul Pierce? Okay, suddenly you've got a defensive juggernaut under the rim, right? He's probably the most competitive guy I've ever seen in the NBA, apart from Michael Jordan.
No, I'd probably put him on the same level as Michael Jordan.
Right? And you put him in there with Nene and Gortat, who can move around. I think, honestly, if KG had gone to Washington, they could have pulled through this series, obviously with John Wall, right? We're talking hypothetically here. But honestly, I thought KG could have made the difference in the series. That's the kind of player that they needed, just a shot blocker, give Gortat a bit of rest. Nene is obviously one of the most athletic bigs in the game. But just having that leadership as well there to help out the younger players like Bradley Beal, it would have been amazing.
The key difference between Paul Pierce and KG now, both Hall of Famers, both amazing contributors to NBA, and their legacies are almost infallible. Paul Pierce has found a way to make his game relevant still. At 36, he still plays incredibly well. He's still a great team locker room leader, as KG would be if he was on the Wizards. I mean, as from all intents and purposes, even though he didn't play amazing this season in Minnesota, he was a great leader there. KG is nowhere near as good as Paul Pierce is now.
No,
because we saw what he did in Brooklyn, and we saw his last year in Boston, and that's just father time. He's 39 now. If he plays next year, it's his 21st season, which will be an equal NBA record with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He's just old, man. I don't think on court it would have made much of a difference, and I still think Atlanta would have won.
No, I disagree with you, because you look at the scenarios of the teams that you just mentioned. Brooklyn Nets, disaster. Okay, Deron Williams is such a sorry excuse for a point guard. Okay, that is the biggest drop-off in form I have ever seen of any player in any sport.
And in my opinion, Brook Lopez, you can't be an NBA starting center and get 6 rebounds.
No,
you're just not working hard enough on the defensive end if you're getting those numbers.
Right. And you mentioned Minnesota, obviously a rebuilding franchise. Great player in Andrew Wiggins. But you're not motivated. I think KG would have been motivated on this team.
KG's just come home for a bit of a homecoming, bit of nice treatment from the fans before he ends up with his career and maybe becomes a minority owner in the Minnesota Timberwolves.
I can see that happening. But you put him with Paul Pierce, someone that he's played all his life with. I don't know. I think it would have made the difference, but obviously we're speaking hypotheticals.
All right, so
let's get into the conference final.
Conference finals. Atlanta, Cleveland. This is another case where people are going to underrate Atlanta a lot. Mm-hmm. A lot. People are going to be like, LeBron, he's been to 4 finals in a row. There's no way Atlanta even comes close. Kevin Love's still out. Kyrie's still hurt. Nothing's really changed there. In my opinion, I see Cleveland still winning it, but I see it in 7 games. It's going to be a very closely fought series. I mean, Budenholzer is going to make some moves. Budenholzer is a very superior coach to David Blatt.
Oh my goodness. It's night and day.
It's night and day. It's not even close. Budenholzer, 20-year apprenticeship under Greg Popovich, a top-of-all coach all time. Mm. It's not close, from a coaching standpoint. But when you have LeBron,
that's
LeBron,
the point.
You have to count as a counter. And we underrated LeBron with our Bulls pick. Mm-hmm. I see LeBron going to his 5th straight finals, but he's going to have to put the team on his back these next 2 series. And I'm sure he's telling himself, just 2 more series. I just need to do this kind of basketball for 2 more series. Can I do it?
You just got to win 8 games and you got the championship.
That's very true.
At this point. So for me, LeBron's greatness will be the key.
Exactly.
And I think he will rise up to the occasion. I also have the Cleveland Cavaliers in 7 games. I'm not underrating the Hawks. I've had enough of that. I did underrate them and I did criticize them a lot, but I'm not underrating them in the series. I'm just saying LeBron is that good.
You had reason to underrate them, though. They weren't convincing against the Brooklyn Nets, and they didn't finish the regular season well. Mm-hmm. But I think now they have momentum.
Yeah. But still, Cleveland is too good.
Yeah.
And LeBron is too good.
is too good.
Yeah.
So yeah, LeBron will be going to his 5th straight NBA Finals and up against the Warriors, in our opinion. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. We just wanted to talk about a few more things that are going on around the league as well.
Okay.
Monty Williams, after taking the Pelicans to their first playoff appearance in 5 years. I mean, he's been the coach for that long, and he's really built this team from absolutely shit nothing to after CP3 left.
Yeah.
And now they finally got back to playoff performance, and he gets fired.
Okay, so I think this was absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The stupidest move. And to me, the GM forced him out. Right. I forget his name.
I think it was some situation where I think the GM wanted more control. Exactly. He doesn't feel like he has enough control of the locker room, anything like that. I think it might be motivated as well by potential candidates that may be on the market. We're talking Tom Thibodeau, maybe. If he gets on the market, I can see the Pellies jumping on that. And what coach wouldn't want to coach Anthony Davis? It's
the next best player in the league.
There's not a lot of pressure in New Orleans to do a lot of stuff right now. Like they're not expecting championships right now. Now they know that. So I reckon he'd maybe be eyeing up that job.
Right, and that brings us to this though. Like, how do you grade a coach and how well he does? Because like you said, he did really well in New Orleans. Now you're gonna have other coaches in the league that only win 20 games, and they're still gonna be there next year. They're gonna win maybe 25 games next year. They'll still be there the next year. Okay, so I think it's a league-wide problem because we see this all the time. Like we were talking about Mark Jackson before. I mean, apart from a power struggle, there's so many other things that come up.
Exactly.
And it's sad to see because these are coaches that put their lives work into this and they do well. You know, Monty Williams did really, really well. And
he had a great relationship. The thing that annoys me is that he had such a great relationship with Anthony Davis. Why would you want to kill that? Like, he's overseeing this player's development from when he came into the league with him on Team USA basketball. You're killing an awesome relationship with your locker room. And we saw them celebrating their playoff appearance. Like, they were genuinely happy to be there. I'm like, this could be the start of something that we look back and like, maybe we look back at Monty Williams and AD in a few years and see something. But
I mean,
I
guarantee
it's a cutthroat league. It is a cutthroat league.
Exactly. But if you had asked Anthony Davis if he wanted Monty Williams to stay,
of course he'd say
he would have said yes. And now that brings me to my next point. Is should the superstars have more say in who the coach is?
In my opinion,
over the GM, obviously,
not over the GM,
or at least have some
I
kind of
think
say.
Players have plenty of power in their court now, more than ever before. But let's be honest, when they went to hire Billy Donovan in OKC, they definitely talked to Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. Yeah. They definitely got consultation from them because they're the franchise. They're coming up in free agency. But everyone knows AD is probably going to re-sign for the Pelicans for like a supermax deal, like $140 million or something ridiculous. It's going to be... But he's still a young player.
I mean, there's no reason for him to move because...
Oh, no way. The best move for him would be to stay in New Orleans,
right,
and sign a supermax deal, make a lot of money,
stay at a small
develop
market
his game. I mean, we won't be seeing him in free agency for 5-6 years. I don't think we'll be doing a podcast on that.
No, I don't think he'd get traded either.
Yeah,
because can you imagine how much you'd have to give up for Anthony Davis? That'd be like 20 first-round picks.
No, Anthony Davis is the single most untradeable player in this league.
Right.
Because that much potential, New Orleans, literally their franchise is preying on this guy. It's literally you have a guaranteed, this is young LeBron basically.
Yeah.
This is you have a franchise carrying player, probably the most upside in the league by ridiculous amounts. Now it's pretty much just put the right guys around him, give him the right coach, and then playoff success will follow.
I mean, New Orleans has potential, and I like the whole makeover that they've done with the franchise as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the new logo, new unis, everything.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And the city of New Orleans isn't a bad sporting city.
No, and it's a great cultural city. Obviously, a huge music place. Out of all the NBA cities, better than living in like OKC or something
Oh,
like that.
for sure. And I mean, we're going to talk about the off-season, right? But you mentioned Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant. I think one of them leaves.
If one of them leaves, the other leaves. It's a small market. Like to me, it'd be brilliant for basketball if they stayed. I would like them to stay, and see them. But I think Kevin Durant will make the most of his free agency, whether that ends up in him staying. Because you got all these teams coming into huge caps. That's the year the cap jumps. You're going to have at least, at minimum, half the league asking for his signature. Mm-hmm. Some teams have a better chance than others. I think the main players in it will be obviously OKC.
Yep.
There's a lot being made of the Washington Wizards, but I think they have a less good chance than people are making it out to be.
Why is that?
Well, his birthplace is around Washington, but he's not guaranteed to go there.
No, but can you imagine him playing with John Wall? I mean, that's a very different player to Russell Westbrook.
To be honest, that's the best situation for him.
Mm-hmm.
You have two young come-upping players with John Wall, probably the best point guard in the Eastern Conference.
I believe in Bradley Beal as well.
Yeah, exactly. Get that hashtag trending. I believe in Bradley Beal. No, he's come up big in these playoffs. He's great there too. I mean, you have Gortat there, strong center. I mean, if you had a 1-2-3 of Wall, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant,
that's smoking some teams
exactly.
right there.
If you double team Durant, you're leaving Bradley Beal open. It's very interesting to see what will happen. And I think the other team that will have a chance is obviously the Los Angeles Lakers, because they'll be in a position with the cap. They don't care about luxury tax at all.
No.
So they are just literally going to be this is our money, this is the franchise, and that's what they need to do this next year. They need to get the right players for that transition out of the Kobe phase to the next superstar. So
there's a little preview for the off season. That'll be on a podcast to come for sure.
All right, let's hop over to Europe. The UCL, we have a final now. We have a finals matchup. I'd like to praise you, Marcelo, because you did stick with Juventus this whole time.
Yep. It's funny because Juventus has copped so much, not criticism. I'm just saying on Twitter and on a lot of social platforms, people are wow, Real Madrid really didn't make it to the final.
Yeah.
Maybe if you watch some Serie A highlights, people, you'd understand how good this team is.
Maybe if you'd paid attention to Italian football at all in the last 4 years.
The current champions.
The 4-time, people don't make a big deal of it in soccer like they should, but 4-time champions,
of the Serie A?
In any other sport, 4-time consecutive, that would be a dynasty.
Mm-hmm.
Soccer domestic leagues aren't as big as they used to be. As in, people aren't going to overrate them as, they're it's Serie A. Serie A is still a competitive league. It's come out from where Inter and Milan, the two Milan clubs, were huge juggernauts, to now Roma and Napoli and that sort of stuff competing for it. But now it's just daylight. It's Juventus, and they had the best young player in the world. By young, I mean maybe under 23, in Paul Pogba.
I mean, he didn't really play well.
He didn't
these
play
two
well.
matches, but he's been injured.
He was injured the first match, and he was playing that second.
I'm gonna give him a pass. I think you give him a pass as well, right?
Because he's not the best player on the team. The best player on the team is Carlos Tevez.
Yes,
who has revitalized his career in probably the most convincing fashion I've seen in a while.
And it's good to see him get back into the Argentina squad as well.
Oh yeah, he deserves to be there. Obviously, the reason he was left out was not just his own form; it was some other factors as well.
Yeah.
He's too good to leave out. He is a starting striker right now for any team in the world.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I mean, talking about the match.
So, what do you think? You think Real really just fell apart, or was it just? Do you feel like it was close?
You know what? I think the midfield of Real really. They played well. I mean, Cruz, Isco. More so Isco. He played really well. He was running everywhere. He was like a headless chicken. He was everywhere. Everywhere the ball was, he was there.
And it's a shame Isco, he's one of those players that was bought because of his talent, not for the system. He doesn't fit into that system. None of those players do, because it's a dysfunctional sort of system where there is no real defending midfielder. It's very attacking driven, and that's why they're open at the back a lot, because, the defense just is, there's no real strong holding midfielder. In these other sides, obviously Juventus has players like Pirlo and Vidal and Pogba that are brilliant midfielders, but also can defend well.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to have Sergio Ramos's comments on screen as we speak, but he came out and he pretty much was criticizing Ronaldo, saying he needs to be more of a team player instead of scoring little goals.
Yeah.
Right? And I think I speak for myself, but I completely agree with him.
I completely agree.
But at the same time, what can Ronaldo do? Okay? We're comparing him to, obviously, Leo Messi in terms of greatness, right? Okay. So what can Leo Messi do that Ronaldo can do? He can dribble. They can both shoot. They're both good from set pieces. Ronaldo has speed, strength, and obviously heading ability on Messi. But Ronaldo can't control a game like Messi does. You think about it, if you saw Messi's heat map on any game he plays, he is literally up front, on the right, on the left, and in the middle, pretty much playing like Iniesta does. He'll just pop up anywhere, make a pass, control the game. Sometimes he'll just stand in the midfield and just sit there.
And I personally see Messi making a move even deeper later in his career.
Exactly.
I think he'll be a midfielder in the later stages of his career, less athletically straining. He'll be in a position, but he can still work his brilliant passing and his brilliant scoring technique as well.
That's a great point. Yep.
But
I mean, Ronaldo can't do that.
Ronaldo's main talent is getting goals. Like, no one will tout him as a bad player. He's top 10 all time, easily. But his and he's a brilliant social advocate, I want to say, by the way. We're not knocking him as a person off the pitch. He's a brilliant social...
No, I like Ronaldo.
He's brilliant socially. He's very socially aware.
Yep.
He does a lot of charity work. We're not knocking him for that. But his on-field conduct comes off as selfish, comes off as a little bit petty at times. Like, obviously, he's a brilliant player, but...
And this is professional football, so this is grown men,
yeah,
right? I mean, everyone understands it. But yeah, go on.
You feel like he won't be the player to make that extra pass for a better goal scoring opportunity. If he's in the box and he has two defenders on him and a goalkeeper in the right position on him, and there's a player coming through, you feel like he'll try and do a tricky dribble move and try and get the goal, which sometimes comes off and sometimes it doesn't. But he won't be looking for that extra pass like Leo Messi does. He's a brilliant player, but he just needs to be more of a team-first player as well.
Okay, but like I said before, if he makes a final pass when he's through on goal, and maybe they get more goals, right?
Yeah.
But does that solve the problem? I don't think it does.
No.
Because centrally, the defense is really good.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't believe in Carvajal. I think he's one of the worst defenders in the world. But let's not even get into that because I'm not here to throw shade on specific players. We're just talking about Real Madrid in general.
He's very good athletically, but that doesn't get you anywhere at this level of football.
Honestly, I have no idea how he's starting for Real Madrid.
Do you feel like Arbeloa? Pardon me for mispronouncing, but I've always seen him as Real just haven't had a standard right back for the kind of team that they are. Their right backs have almost been a joke. Like Arbeloa followed by Carvajal. Like Carvajal's obviously young. Like he has potential to grow. But it's hard when your defense is nowhere near the standard of your attack because you get a very top heavy team that can leak goals. And I'm glad I'm seeing Juventus in the final. Quickly, what's your prediction? Obviously, we had a great Barcelona game, by the way.
Right.
Well, they were very convincing in their first leg. I predicted that Bayern would come out in the second game, and they would.
You got that right.
Exactly.
I mean, you also said that Barca would go through.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I think
not much to say about the Bayern series.
It was too convincing in the first game.
No Robben, no Ribéry, no Alaba. There's pretty much the three best players on the team.
Like, they were playing hurt the whole time.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly, right?
And do you think Pep leaves? Do you think Pep Guardiola leaves or he stays at Bayern? In my opinion, he stays. He's got a brilliant situation. I don't know how you would be in a better situation than you would be with Bayern, like, as a coach.
And the expectations for him, he gets criticised because he's not going to win the treble.
Yeah.
But are you kidding me? How many teams have won the treble in history?
Exactly. And this is a team that you talk about spoiled fans sometimes. The fans of these super clubs sometimes, it's because the expectations are so high. If you don't meet them, the lashback will be quite strong. But in saying that, what's your predictions for this upcoming final between Barcelona and Juventus in Berlin?
Look, Barcelona's too good. This is going to be a 3-1. And let me tell you why. Suarez, Neymar, Messi, best front line in the world. Yes, that Juventus defense is good and Buffon can come up in big games, but the key is the midfield, okay? No matter who Barca puts in there, okay? Rakitic, Iniesta, Mascherano, Busquets, Xavi. It doesn't matter who you put in there. That midfield is far superior to Juventus's midfield for this one point. Pirlo is the most overrated player in world football right now.
I'm gonna agree just because he's not playing at the standard he was 2 seasons ago.
Mm-hmm.
I personally believe 2 seasons ago he was the one that led the initial charge of Juventus going from afterthoughts in the title race to Champions League competitors and like a perennial title team. In my opinion, I think him as a midfield maestro, yes, like his highlight reel is always going to be better than his defending or anything like that. And I personally think Iniesta is a far superior player, both in right now and in terms of his actual runs on the board in his career.
Mm-hmm.
But I honestly think he was a brilliant midfield maestro 2 seasons ago. But he's 35. He's old now.
Right.
Oh, no, pardon me. I think maybe 36. Sorry.
And honestly, he has no excuses because all he's there for is to control the game.
Exactly.
And you've got maybe the best defensive midfielder in the world behind you in Vidal.
Yeah.
Who pretty much cleans up all your mistakes, which he usually does.
Yeah.
Pogba's a superstar.
And Marchiso's also like a brilliant midfielder in himself. Like that, like, you know.
I'm so glad you brought him up. He's a great player.
Like, and it's hard at times to fit them all in without sacrificing structure. But these are 4 brilliant midfielders. But yeah, I agree with you. I think it will actually be a 3-1. I'll agree with your scoreline.
The no regard prediction. There we go.
The no regard prediction 3-1. Barcelona in the final. I think their attack is too good. Their midfield also will be the deciding factor. I mean, Messi's lining up for his 4th Champions League.
The greatest of all time.
Yeah, I agree. He's the greatest of all time. Obviously, we're not old. We haven't seen too many Pele highlights. But you know,
hey,
Messi's still a GOAT. Like
the GOAT.
The GOAT.
But we have to move on because we're running out of time.
Yeah, we're running out of time. And I just want to quickly mention this does give me flashbacks of the Manchester United and Barcelona Champions League back in 2011. These are 2 very good sides, but one's clearly superior to the other.
Yeah.
All right, let's hop into, quickly we want to mention about Steven Gerrard.
Right.
He's played his last game for Liverpool.
It was great to see.
It was great to see. I think it was a strong send-off. I think he has copped a lot of criticism these last 2 years because he's tried to adjust the role to a new role and he hasn't done it very well.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me flashbacks of Frank Lampard, where he tried to adjust to that defensive midfield role and he wasn't quite ready to do that.
You know, I want your opinion as a Chelsea fan. I get the feeling that Gerrard is more appreciated than Lampard is in England.
I agree. In my opinion, I think Lampard's the better player.
Thank you. I mean, it's such bullcrap, right?
And it's an unpopular opinion, and I'm very surprised it is an unpopular opinion. Lampard is the highest scoring player in Chelsea history. He has multiple Premier League medals. And that's the biggest knock on Gerrard, but I think that's ridiculous. I think Gerrard, in the manner that he won the Champions League back in 2005, he's won a few FA Cups. I mean, where does Gerrard rank for you all time in terms of greatness?
Well, okay. Let's not even talk about, midfielders ever. Can we just talk about, English midfielders?
English midfielders,
he'd probably be second on my list, honestly.
To Lampard being the greatest.
Yeah. Because I don't even put Beckham in that conversation.
Oh, no way. Beckham is a global icon, but I think that inflates his image as a player. I think, obviously, he's still great, but I don't see him on the level of these players.
And we're talking about this generation, obviously.
We're talking about this generation. Obviously, England won the World Cup in 1966, but, Jesus Christ, we're not... This isn't the History Channel for us.
This is the No Regard podcast. Yeah. We're right now. We're right here.
Now. Of this generation, I think Lampard's a superior player to Gerrard. But I still think Gerrard is a great of the game.
Yeah.
We wish him all the luck that he has when he's going to LA. I think he'll still be brilliant there. I think he'll be a great locker room presence. I think the most painful memory of his career will be last year.
The slip.
And even though Chelsea, too many Chelsea fans enjoyed that way too much, I personally felt for the guy.
Yeah.
That and especially with the talk he gave his place the week before. This was a there is humour in it, of course.
I mean, honestly, like, if we were watching the match together, Nathan would have been dying laughing at that point.
I probably would have been.
And then maybe a few hours later, okay, well, like, that was a
bit. once I get myself together, and then they just completely exploded against Crystal Palace with a 3-0 lead up in 78 minutes to pretty much give it the title. They let it be a draw.
Yeah.
Man, Liverpool just aren't good enough right now.
No.
But I don't think that should be a knock on Steven Gerrard. I think he's played on some great teams.
He's a great player.
And he's a great player all the time.
Heart of a lion. Wish him all the best.
Yep, all the luck in the world. A-League, we're just going to quickly mention about the A-League final. We're not going to be able to review the match yet.
But it starts in 2 hours. I'm so hyped for this. I'm ready to see Mark Yanko score some goals.
Yeah, just shoot us a tweet or just hit us up on Facebook if you want to hear our opinions on it. We're really excited for it as well.
I'll be bashing Melbourne victory on Twitter if you want to get at me.
So we'll just quickly throw our picks out again. I think Melbourne victory will win.
I got Sydney. Mark Yanko, please help me out with this, man. Please.
All right.
Let's get into some other Australian sports though. AFL. We got the World Anti-Doping Agency that they've appealed the decision of not guilty to the Essendon players with their doping scandal. So what were your opinions on that, man?
Okay, look, it's been hard to watch for Essendon in the last few years because it has been, to be honest, that was some really dodgy stuff going on back in 2011 in the off-season. They experimented with PEDs on the players, and it was James Hird's, I think, second year as a coach. And to be honest, James Hird is probably top 5 Essendon players. He's an icon for the club. But now he's ruined that for himself. He was probably one of the greatest players ever. Just an absolute magical player to watch. But now he's kind of ruined his legacy because of this experimenting with PEDs. The players, and obviously he was suspended for a year as well. He didn't coach any of last year, and now he's still coaching the club, which I think was a poor decision, to be honest. I think Mark Thompson, Bomber Thompson, a dual premiership coach, should have been the one left in charge of the club because he was motivated. He really wanted these players to, he had better control of the locker room, and I think James Hird isn't anywhere near as good of a coach.
And do you think it's because of that star factor that they gave him the job?
Yeah, I think we saw it with Michael Voss in Brisbane. We've seen it at a few other clubs as well. These legends of the game kind of coach at the club, but great players don't always make great coaches. And this is another situation. I don't rate James Hird as a coach, and I really think he was suspect in what he did. And now we thought it was all over and done with. The players had been not guilty, and now it's back. Now the World Anti-Doping Association has come back and appealed the decision, and now these players have to start going through it again because it wasn't in their say. Only one player didn't partake in this because there was a club mandated thing. It's just because he was afraid of needles.
Right.
It's David Zaharakis is who I'm talking about, by the way. So you've still got 34 players who are still going through this on a weekly basis, and it's going to be talked about every week for Essendon.
And it sucks for the AFL as a league too.
It's good that they're holding this accountable because no club is ever going to try this ever again.
Right. I mean the media backlash though.
Yeah, the media backlash is not good for the club. It's not good for the AFL. I'd much rather be hearing about the games, much rather be hearing about the greatness of players rather than this thing that drags the very idea of professional sport through the mud.
Yeah.
But yeah, hopefully it gets settled fairly quickly and it doesn't drag on. As all of this has, it's dragged on ridiculously, and I'm wishing all my best to the Essendon players, not to James Hird, to the Essendon players, that this is settled fairly quickly. They still maintain a not guilty verdict because although PEDs were used, it was at the fault of the sports doctor who currently is not working at that club anymore, and it was a very murky sort of situation.
Yeah,
we'll never hear about what actually happened there, in my opinion. All right, we'll hop on to the question of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So, do you want to have a go at this, Marcelo?
So, the question of the week for the No Regard podcast, should the A-League keep the salary cap?
Okay, so for people that don't know, the salary cap in the A-League is quite varied. There's some for domestic players, some for a marquee player assignment. It's quite complicated, but the basic principle of a salary cap in general is to keep it fair.
And competitive,
And competitive. And I think it works very well in sports like the AFL. The NBA is the shining model for a salary cap, especially now. Obviously, there's going to be jumps in it, but that's another issue. And it does keep it fair. It does allow sport to be secular in the way that like some teams will be on the top, then they'll go to the bottom, to the top, to the bottom. And it allows that sort of each fan of any team to be hopeful for their team's prospects.
Right, even the small market teams. And we love to see the Wellington Phoenix there, you know?
Exactly, yeah.
And
the Western Sydney Wanderers as well, the way they went to the grand final last year and the year before so brilliantly as well.
But the problem is that so obviously the A-League is a growing league and we love it, right? Because we want this league to be as big as it can get. The more money you put into it, the more people are going to say maybe the cap isn't a good idea, because suddenly you take the cap off and maybe you can sign a great player from Europe, you know? But then again, with the competitiveness, who's going to have the money to do that? It's only going to be the Melbourne teams, Sydney, or Brisbane. And I probably barely Brisbane. Okay, and we're the biggest.
It's going to be Sydney FC and Melbourne Victory that just go all out. To be honest, it works in every other team sport, but a salary cap does not work in international soccer because this is not a domestic sport.
Exactly.
Everything else may be domestic, but this is an international game. Like, players are going in between countries constantly. Like,
I'd love to see the percentage of players that are Australian in the league.
This is not a domestic league. This is part of an international game and an international transfer market. As much as we hate that money is a central part of the game, it is a central part of the game. And look, it may lead to a situation, it probably will lead to a situation where it's perennially going to be Sydney FC and Melbourne Victory in the top 2 or 3 every year. So it will hinder the chances for small market teams vastly. But
so your answer to it is that yes, we should keep it?
Yes, we should keep it. We should loosen it.
Thank you.
We should loosen some regulations. It works for the A-League because it does hinder the chances of small market teams. But I think eventually we'll move to a more European situation where it's just money, man. Like, it's just how much you can pay your players, how much you can pay for players.
Right.
And I reckon that's an inevitable move.
It might be inevitable, but I agree with you. I think for now, you got to keep the salary cap on, raise it a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Because players need to get paid.
Exactly.
Oh, and another thing with the A-League that I just want to throw out there, you need to start paying the refs full time.
Exactly.
People don't understand the referees you watch on Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday morning A-League, they're not working full time. They're part time. You know, I mean, you got referees that teach at schools. Okay, like, how ridiculous is that? And then we get on them for not making the right calls. Are you kidding me?
Exactly, yeah. Like A-League is one of the most brutal sports for these for calls as well. Like, you're not going to get much sympathy from the fans.
No, there's no goal line technology. There's no reviews.
Like, if we want the A-League to be considered up there with the AFL and the NRL as a national sports league that's right up there, number one, they need a better TV deal, to be honest. They need a way better TV deal than what they're getting with SBS.
I mean, SBS and Fox Sports share it, and SBS sometimes have to resort to playing a game late.
Exactly.
So, I mean, I
reckon a free TV deal in the next negotiations will be what would launch the league, but they need to show some signs of more professionalism, more growth than we've seen. And it's been impressive. It's only been around for 10 years, but the growth has been amazing.
Yeah.
But as you said, we need to use that growth and refine that growth.
Yeah, it's about using the money well.
Exactly. All right, we might move on to our end ones, Marcelo.
Finishing up soon. You want to hit me
with
yours?
I want to just quickly give a shout out to David Letterman.
Okay.
You know, he's had a huge, long career as part of The Late Show in America, and he's retiring on the 20th of May. Like, bit of a damper on my birthday. I think it's the right move. I think now we're seeing guys like Jimmy Fallon, James Corden, John Oliver, Stephen Colbert. This is a change in the guard. We're also seeing Jon Stewart retire this year as well. Not retire, but he's moving away from The Late Show. The Daily Show. It's a changing of the guard in late night American TV. And look, David Letterman's a comic legend, but it's a move that was inevitable. Stephen Colbert will be his replacement, which I'm really excited for. So shout out to David Letterman. Thank you for the absolute brilliant decades of service.
Right, it's a change of generations.
Exactly.
It was going to come eventually.
Exactly. He's in his 60s as well, so it was inevitable. What's your N1 for this week?
I got a shout out too, but it's more local.
Yeah.
We went out last night. We told you before.
We had a strong sesh.
I'm a man of my word, Nathan.
Okay.
You know this.
I do.
Right? Okay. So I told Liam, Tim, Simon, I'd give you a shout out. Here it is, boys. Liam Corneliuson, Tim Fritz, Simon Bell. Shout out to you guys, man.
Nice.
Their social media links are going to be on the screen. Go follow them. Go give them some hate.
Yeah, and like that. Look, follow Tim and Liam, great photographers as well.
Yep.
Some good stuff on their IG feeds too. All right, do you mind if I do a quick shout out before we finish up the podcast?
Yeah, that's fine.
Very critical, serious sport. Social netball. UQ. My UQBA squad has put together a netball team, and we've made it to the grand final.
The big one, Nathan.
The big one.
Got to perform. You got to be clutch.
Mate, I'm clutch master.
Nathan's clutching up in that fourth quarter.
But no, it's going to be a lot of fun. So
where is it? When is it? I'm coming to watch. I'm serious.
Yeah, it's the netball courts UQ at 6 p.m. Wednesday. So get around it, lads. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Just one last thing. Happy birthday again, my brother.
Thank you, man. This has been the No Regard Podcast. I'm Nathan Blakely.
I'm Marcelo Lucha.
Thanks, guys.